and welcome back to the Unbound Woman podcast. For anyone who is here for the first time, hi, I'm Niamh. I'm your podcast host, and for anybody who has followed me before, welcome back. I'm really excited to have you all back here. It's been a very long time. It's actually been a year since I last recorded a podcast episode, and I won't lie, I'm a little nervous. I've been feeling drawn to going back on the podcast since probably April. I've avoided it. I've avoided it so much. And we're here today, and all of a sudden, my eyes have decided that they've got allergies, right? So we're just going to roll with it. We are just going to get me on there because this is something, obviously, energetically, I just need to come out and be really authentic with. A lot has gone on in a year. A lot has crumbled. A lot has fallen away. A lot has changed. This season of the podcast is here to bring you through not only the changes that I went through, but also the little bits and pieces that I think could just really be used practically for women. I'm an Aquarius by nature. And one of the things that an Aquarius does is that we are very forward thinking. And if something can be done better, we try and do it better. If we see distortion in something or we see a trend that's maybe not the healthiest long term for society, we naturally gravitate away or take what we need as the lesson and build something that we believe is better, right? There's also a lot of Aquarius out there in, I'm sure, historical times who've become gurus and maybe cult leaders. That is also a downfall that we do have. But I'm not here to build a cult, I'm here to build a community. And my podcast is a long form content that I love doing to bring women together, and we're going to talk about everything. You know, this is the whole point of becoming an unbound woman. And one of the aims of the podcast is not to go and make clones of myself. None of my, you know, kind of podcast episodes or maybe any of my offerings that I bring out in the future will ever do that. It's not to make a copy of myself. It's to give you the information, to give you the knowledge, the tools, the modalities, and the love and compassion for you to go and find out who you are as an unbound woman. What is keeping you bound from being your authentic self and showing up in joy and feeling peace and feeling overall better in your life? So yeah, it's been a crazy year. I won't lie. For anybody who does know, I obviously started a business off back in 2021. And I began with women's circles and giving energy healings. I then moved down to Galway in 2022. Yeah. We moved down to Galway in 2022, where I set up down here. In late 2023, I set up a wellness center. I was also doing a lot of online work while also coming out of full-time corporate work. So I'd gone into part-time work there. In April, May last year, I was told that there was an availability for redundancy. I knew my job was already on the line, so I took the redundancy and I came out of work. What are we told by the spiritual community? Oh, once you give up work, your business will energetically open and all this money in abundance and clients will come out of nowhere. Well, that's not what I experienced. I had built a client base, and what I realized was that things just slowly started falling away. The wellness center no longer felt aligned for me. It also wasn't viable anymore. And putting out courses and stuff just didn't seem to align. I felt called to them, but I don't want to charge people through the nose to work with me. And I think in June last year and July, what really kind of came to me was I had to sit with my values as a person and understand what it was truly meant to me to be not only a business owner, but a leader in this world, a community builder, a woman who stands to help other women, who wants to get information out so you can become a better version of yourself or free the version of yourself that wants to be freed. And I really sat with all of my my feelings and my values and my beliefs around what is going on in the spiritual wellness business community, and none of it felt aligned to me. Some parts are really beautiful, but I see a lot of distortion. I see a lot of lack of integration, lack of embodiment, which is a huge one, lack of actually looking after our physical body. And then on top of that, I see so much avoidance. And I just could no longer show up in that space authentically through that being one of my values. I kind of decided that I was going to step away from my business and allow it to crumble in whatever way it needed to. And I didn't understand why the crumbling had to happen. I just knew in my bones it was coming, and with it was going to give me the freedom that I've been looking for. And not in the way that I was being told by the wealth brigade out there. And I really had to stand my ground. I really had to surrender deeply into it. I had to really come to terms with what it was I actually wanted for my own life outside of helping others. And that's not an easy place to be, right? And I also really felt that I was performing, that like people nowadays want you to give them some kind of reel that's going to hit them really hard so that they're interested. They want the catchy phrase. They want you to heal them in 6 weeks. They want to become the wealthiest version of themselves in 2 months. They want to, you know, have all of these things. And actually, what I've really learned is that you have to choose your heart in this world. And while, yes, facing off with yourself can be really hard, what are you doing then with that information? Because what I'm seeing is a lot of people avoiding or being able to be like, well, I'm so self aware and point out stuff about themselves, but nothing changes. They put in a plan and the plan never happens. And that was happening for me. I have spoken on previous episodes around my own health, around my endo journey. And I realized that well, yes, I was putting my best foot forward in that moment. How was I going to be my healthiest version of myself when I was constantly worried about money, constantly overwhelmed with the idea of running the business? To the point where when you're running your own business, your brain doesn't stop. Okay. And I'm not saying you can't get to a point where like you can get people to come in and do stuff for you. But when you're the one on the ground doing 90%, 99% of the work in the business and trying to keep yourself afloat and keep yourself regulated and look after your health and all the million other things that you're trying to do in that moment, like it's literally the only thing that goes on in your brain. What should my next reel be? What should my next offering be? That's not selling. What should the cost be? I don't like that cost. X, Y, and Z says to do this. This person's doing that. Like, you just become so overwhelmed that you go into fawn response or freeze where you don't want to actually do any of the work. And then you're resting and being feminine. And actually, that's not what that is at all. So after I had a really big word with myself, I asked myself what would truly feel delicious for me. Now, it took me a few months to get here, right? I had 3 months of, no, July, August, November. It was out of work for 6 months, which was difficult in itself. And by August, I had kind of really had a conversation with myself of like, if I'm not willing to charge the big money to work with me, if I'm so overwhelmed by the idea of showing up, if I don't feel aligned with the space, what am I doing? So, what's the next step? And I decided that going back into the corporate world was exactly what I was going to do. So, I will do an episode on the job that I now have because I had to go through another job before there because it was all about worth and manifestation. And I think I'll do a whole actual episode on that because it's actually quite important. And it was an important part of my journey. But what I realized and what I leaned into that by February just this year, I started a corporate job that ticked all the boxes. It gives me great financial stability. It gives me so much freedom. It's exciting yet not overly stressful work like I would have been. And it's in something where my skills are being utilized. So in that, I feel like there's just so much peace. And it wasn't an easy decision to make. And I felt like I was an imposter, that the whole spiritual community and those feminine CEOs were going to come after me because I'm now cutting off my nose to spite my face and that none of my clients will ever come in. And that's actually not what's happened at all. Over the last year, I had started this journey before, again, spoke about it on a podcast episode. I actually, for the first time in a very long time, got to truly just focus on my own health. And that meant bringing in a structure in my own life that works for me. So that is getting up in the morning, having half an hour to myself if I want it, going to the gym, coming home. Being able to work from home means I can eat what is there. I'm not on the go running. I don't even have to meal prep if I don't want to. And I get to have this really beautiful, calm space where I work. I can, of course, get stressed out, but I know how to deal with that now because my nervous system is in a much better place than it was this time last year. And I have really worked on my health. And the more I've worked on my health, the more abundance and more manifestation has come through me. And I truly believe that the healthier you are, the more open you are because you're not feeling stuck, you're not feeling crap. You are an embodiment of the abundance that you're feeling from within. So from that space, I then, as I said, I've been really working on my health. We're getting married next week. I'm in Portugal, so that's coming up as well. So like we've had a lot on. I also did my first ever dance performance on stage with Bevelin Body Community, and that was just a phenomenal experience. And what I really realized was that once I took the business away and the hardships, so much of my life freed up, so much of my headspace freed up, so much of my nervous system felt expanded and not contracted. I no longer felt heavy. And so much really comes of this place where I'm at right now, where like I don't feel like I have to have a 40 item checklist to be spiritual and get up in the morning. I go down some mornings and I'll have maybe a cup of cacao coffee, like some incense. I have a little book I read once a day, and I can either sit there scrolling afterwards for 20 minutes, or I sit there just listening to music. And some days I pick up my journal and write, and some days I don't. Some days I also have a very big chat with ChatGPT and let him call me out my shit. And some days I don't. And some days I sit and I read a good smoke book. And life feels easy. Getting up and going to the gym feels easy. Getting up and feeding myself with really good food feels easy. Our relationship has never been better. Our sex has never been deeper. Like I am, and I have my bad days, right? This is not me saying that life is fucking unicorns and butterflies every day. It really isn't. But I'm at a space now where stress is stress in the moment. It's not ruling my life anymore. It's not ruling my choices because I have rooted into the safety of myself. And I've gone back counseling. I have done all this other work that, others may not have seen because I wasn't very live with it on Instagram. But I needed that space because if I'm really honest with you, I started my healing journey in 2020, qualified as a life coach early 2021, and started, and I expected it to be my be all and end all. And I did all the right things. And don't get me wrong, my business made money. It didn't make a lot of money, but it made money. It wasn't exactly it wasn't exactly plummeting in that regard. It just wasn't viable enough. It just wasn't making enough money to live on, especially in Ireland. And for me, I am now in a space where I feel like I'm coming out of that hole of like, I have lost friendships over the last few months. I have showed up for myself and put in boundaries in very different ways. I'm learning to honor myself in so many different various capacities that I never had before. And I'm now feeling like I'm ready to come back into the world. And I don't know if I'm going to build a business out of this. I might just build a podcast. I might build a business. I'm actually not in a rush. For the first time in my life, I'm not in a rush. And it's not that I don't have goals, and it's not that I don't have objectives on what I truly desire in life, but I really feel like it gets to be slow, and I get to make it delicious, and I get to make it soothing, and I get to make it in a way that makes me feel really good, while also not pulling the safety mat from under myself again. And also to stop feeling like I need to show up a certain way to be liked. Because what I've been really shown is that actually who I am is one of the most beautiful things about myself and the world. And that has become such a powerful message for myself that I'm no longer performing for everybody online. I'm actually just going to be me. And I'm going to say the hard shit. And I'm going to feel the hard shit. And I'm going to just do what I feel is right in any given moment. Um, And again, my health journey has been such a big part of this. There's so much going on in that regard in the background. There's a lot going on around me learning to speak out about what I don't think is okay, which is something I've really struggled with a lot of my life, because I see things so differently to many people out there that it's not that I even trigger, it's that sometimes I feel so misunderstood that I don't know how to deal with that, and I feel very ostracized. But I think that time of that happening needs to go now, and that's okay. But yeah, I just wanted to come on today and really just talk about where I'm at, what life has for me, where we're going with the podcast, what's happening in my world. And I will use the lessons that I have learned over the last few months as podcast episodes, like between my health journey, helping with so much of my own inner masculine healing, along with actually allowing me more into my feminine, and also love and relationships. Like I want to talk about, as I said, manifesting and wealth, and what wealth actually is. And also, I really want to talk about the distortion that I'm seeing in the spiritual community. And it's not to shame and it's not to give out, it's actually to provide you with more discernment, because I think we hear the word spiritual and we just automatically go, I trust that person. And I feel like that is what happened to me, and this is what I want to speak about. But before we go this evening, I do have a journal prompt for you. And that journal prompt is, where in my life am I performing for the validation of others and abandoning myself rather than just being me? So hopefully I'll see you all next week. Please share this with anybody that you think would resonate with this, who might need to hear this. The more we share this, the bigger the community grows. And sometimes it's just nice to feel seen in this world when we have so much going on social media for us and in our own lives, that we can sometimes feel like our thoughts are crazy and that people don't get us. Whereas actually, I can imagine there's people out there listening to this being like, I fucking get that. And that is exactly why I'm here to speak about it. So yeah, I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I'll speak to you.